You an overthinker or consider yourself like thinking too much and then it can be exhausting and just draining? Yeah, totally been there. So today what I wanted to talk through is three tips I found that have really helped me work through overthinking. And if you stay until the end, I have an extra point for you then as well. As always, if you want to connect me further, I will leave my links in the show notes below. I've been recovering from this many, many years, overthinking, because I've got one of those analytic, very well. I suppose we all got analytical minds, but I've got a very kind of like methodic, can't even think of the word, strong sort of like method, like process. Like I really like maths at school. I deal with a lot of numbers and sort of like career. Done a lot of planning as a project manager. Got a bit of a background. Got a sales background. Sort of, it's about metrics, numbers, all these kind of things. And those things involve me thinking a lot, not to even mention the amount of information that's thrown at me and people in general, I believe, in society with like social media and the media and everything. And I can totally get you into an overthinking mode unless you really train your mind to relax. And it's not about having zero thoughts and being completely still, but being able to train your mind to do that. There's so much information out there that it can just get exhausting and overwhelming. And overwhelm leads to inaction, which therefore doesn't create a change in us. So what I've learned from some of the best teachers in personal growth, my favorite personal teachers, is they keep things very, very simple. Like they got information, they got teams, they're multi-millionaires, they got all these businesses coming at them. But they don't think about every single thing. They focus on what are the most important things, and they keep things very, very simple with very simple systems and have certain processes in order to get them think. Else they go crazy. They probably go insane if they're trying to think about everything. And I've certainly been guilty of like, okay, I've got to think about that. I've got to think about that. I've got to think about that. And it just gets exhausting. And mentally and emotionally, it can get extremely draining. And maybe you can relate to this as well. Maybe it's really impacting you. So here's my tips that I really wanted to suggest to you in terms of overthinking. The first one is scheduling time to think. Okay, you're saying don't overthink. Well, what I found is that when I allow myself to think at a certain time, like sit down, process some of my thoughts, and then allow that process to take place, it actually says, okay, brain, I'm not ignoring you. I'm paying attention to you. It's just, we are going to take some action at another time. We're going to think in this time, right? So scheduling time out, maybe even in the morning, go for a walk and think about have your thoughts and then maybe write some things down. It's a really key one. I actually learned this from someone who was a very successful business person in one of my networks. And she taught me from like some of her masterminds. She'd been on real top quality masterminds, learned from some very wealthy and successful people, is that some of the people who we see as like really, whatever you call successful, but the people out there who are the richest people in the world, the people, the best of their industry, is that she had learned from that mastermind that they find time to think every single day. They allow themselves to think rather than like jumping in between tasks and kind of just going crazy. They actually go, right, I'm not going to go on my phone. I'm not going to answer my emails. I'm going to have an hour or so to think. And it was amazing that these highly busy people actually allow themselves to think. So that is a suggestion for you, actually scheduling in time, even if it's 30 minutes a day, to think. Now, if you find yourself really overthinking, maybe it's a bit more. You schedule some other time for you to think. And then the second point leads on from that, is time to take action. So in this action taking, you're not going to allow yourself to overthink. That's for the other slot that I said. You're going to allow yourself to take action on what you need to do. Like, okay, brain, we're going to think then, now we're going to take action on this. Now, of course, when you're taking action, you may need to refer to something or think a little bit about like the next move you're doing. Of course, what we're not doing here is getting into over analysis. If you need some support from someone, you can ask them, right? So that's the second. Now, the third one I'm also going to suggest is, when things get a little bit like you get into a bit of an overthinking space, then in advance, making sure you've got a plan. So what I mean by that is writing down a very simple process on getting yourself into a more calmer state. So for example, maybe it's like step one is just acknowledging that you're overthinking, that you're going, oh, I'm getting into this overthinking phase. Oh, it's exhausting. Step two is to disidentify from that emotion, saying, I am not identifying with overthinking. I just happen to be in that process right now, because there's a difference between identifying with something and knowing it's just an action or something you're doing. And then the third step you could do, for example, is just do some like deep breathing. Just like, I'm going to breathe, I'm going to feel into my body. And then maybe one of those steps also involves you just writing down all the things you're thinking about, and then you just take one action. So up to you, decide what your process is going to be for when you overthink. I've got an extra point for you as well. I just want to mention again, if you want to connect me more on social media, you can find my links in the show notes below. The final point I'm going to suggest is breathe into the heart, because the heart knows whilst the mind thinks it knows, or thinks it knows how to do something. Your heart knows in its feeling. So if you can get more into your heart and deep breathe into your heart, it will show you wisdom beyond anything the mind could ever come up with. It may sound a bit, I don't know what the term is, it may sound a bit like OTT, what I'm just saying, but honestly, the heart is the strongest thing for knowing what you need to do. So it may be hard at first because your brain is so switched on, you're going analyzing everything. But when you can breathe into your heart and feel that sense of knowing, then it's going to guide you. So allowing yourself even 5 minutes a day to breathe into your heart is a really powerful one. And then even if the next step doesn't seem like make any sense, as long as it's not obviously crazy or anything like that, then just take that action, just do it. Okay, now that's what I got for you today. I appreciate you for being here, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.